What's up everyone? Hope you're having a fantastic week. Upon first glancing at the title of this video, you might have thought I was referring to games that induce a unique sense of anger. Games that make you scream internally. And you would be right, but not because they're hard games. It's not even because they're particularly shitty games. No, these games are quite literally rage-inducing because of how we are going to be classifying them going forward. So this morning I pulled up this stupid article about how stupid Ubisoft developers have begun using the term quadruple A to refer to the caliber of some of their next-gen games. Just to show you, these screenshots from Twitter user Timmer222 show LinkedIn profiles from a few devs at Ubisoft, where if you look really carefully, you can see these nerds using the quadruple A label to describe their games Skull and Bones and Beyond Good and Evil 2 and a couple of other unknown games. Why? Literally, I'm not going to bullshit you. It's obvious that the AAA bubble has become saturated to the point where the only way Ubisoft can think to convince more people their games are more cutting edge than the rest is to just throw another A on there. Fuck it, let's just throw like 5 more A's on there. It's astonishingly short-sighted, as the only logical conclusion to this emerging trend is going to be all the other studios abandoning the AAA label as well, negating the entire point of making a fucking distinction in the first place. This is the inevitable result of market competition, and we are so into the late stage of it that it honestly reads as parody to me. Like, this concept actually already exists in parody. There's this Mega 64 video from 4 years ago where they pretty much describe the entire, like, reasoning behind what they're doing right now. Like, and it's just... How can you possibly, like, take this seriously? As it turns out, somehow, this has been a legitimate term thrown around by people in the industry for a little while now. While, today is my first time hearing of it, the good folks at Microsoft referred to their new super studio, The Initiative, as a quadruple A studio a couple weeks ago. So, like, this term isn't just coincidentally being used by a few cheeky Ubisoft staff members. It's something that the bigwigs are putting real consideration into pushing as the new standard for blockbuster gaming. I just couldn't roll my eyes harder if I wanted to. Let's recap a little bit on how we got up to 4 A's in the first place. If you weren't aware before, AAA games are the ones that get large-scale marketing, the highest budgets, and look and feel more like movies than they do games in a lot of cases. Think like Grand Theft Auto, Assassin's Creed, The Last of Us, Call of Modern, Battlefield, whatever, I don't know. I really don't play them because I'm a member of the true elites. But I'm sure you get the picture. You know the kind of games I'm talking about. If we take a trip back to the early 2000s, there really wasn't an established formula for creating a game for mass consumption akin to Hollywood movies. There were popular games that would be considered hits, but if you couldn't understand the appeal of those games, then sorry, they just aren't for you. But that wasn't enough for the more ambitious studios. They saw untapped potential in the millions of people who enjoy a high-octane thrill or a big adventure, but couldn't view video games as a viable method for scratching that itch. By large, graphics and hardware limitations were sufficient reason for folks to say, wow, I would much rather just go see an action movie. Those are the people that the leading game developers had been desperate to tap into for years and were just waiting for technology to catch up with them to go wild with milking this market for all it's worth. Squaresoft in particular led the charge in making games more mainstream with Final Fantasy VII to the tune of $40 million in production costs. Although it might be hard to see it now, this kind of budget made all the difference in proving that Square was not to be taken lightly. That was in 1997, and it set a new precedent for the kind of tactics developers were to employ in designing a game. Red, pump more money into it. Final Fantasy VII is still a classic JRPG at its core though, and no matter how you slice it, the turn-based battles, unending walls of text, and a clunky back end made this game a bit too much of a game to nail down the casual market. And although it took some time for other studios to catch up to Square, when they did, they took notice of what was working and not working and bridging this gap, and by the end of the 6th console generation, AAA titles were more expensive to make than ever, and they were also coming out left and right. Then with the advent of HD, it felt like gaming as a cinematic experience could finally truly be realized. Halo 3, Modern Warfare 2, GTA 4, and 5 are all some of the most expensive games ever made, and man, they're so big too. Games in this category have shaped the entire landscape of gaming culture for the past couple of decades, and I don't know, sadly, it makes sense. Blockbuster mentality is a film industry term referring to the pressure faced by the small number of conglomerates who run much of the movie industry to create formulaic productions with a high budget. This is like 100% applicable today to the video game industry. You got your EAs, your Naughty Dogs, Activisions, Epic Games, Blizzards, whatever. They're all interchangeable from one another and every year churn out high-budget formulaic games insured to print free money for their top execs. The promise of sequels to keep your consumers coming back, frequent reboots and re-releases, and merch all work to minimize risk and maximize profits. I don't believe I'm handing out any life-changing revelations about the business side of games here. Like, this is all par for the course in capitalism, and I'm not trying to ruin the magic if one of your favorite games has come up in this discussion. But dude, like, quadruple A? So this is the next step? Your AAA titles just don't hit the same anymore? Oh, what happened? Did that small list of conglomerates get too long? Oh no, the profits of game sales were spread across too many multi-million-dollar studios? My hard-earned money is only lining the 10th wealthiest pockets of the industry? I sure hope somebody puts every AAA title into a blender and calls it the next big thing. This seems to be the approach Microsoft wants to take. It seems any one studio just can't be trusted to churn out even the most predictable garbage anymore. Microsoft sent Nick Fury himself in the flesh to individually assemble a team comedically called The Initiative to work on their next big quadruple A games. And we are expected to believe these games will just magically be better than the AAA games of years past because they are even more think-tanked in a boardroom? I'm sorry, but I really don't think this term is going to catch on in the mainstream. At least, I hope it doesn't. I mean, maybe it'll make for a great meme, but I don't know, it's not even fun to say. And it's setting a weird precedent for the future if all we have to do to make a game look even more high budget than any other one is to add more A's to it. Okay. The last thing I want to show you guys is a small 2012 GameSpot article that feels just a little chilling to read in the current year. It summarizes the contents of a game developers conference session titled Designing Games to Sell, hosted by then Ubisoft employee and creative director for Assassin's Creed 3, Alex Hutchinson. Here's what he had to say. He envisions two dystopian futures for the game industry. One, he said, is where the only games that sell are focused on analytics and are obsessed with making money. The other, according to Hutchinson, is what he described as a massive arms race, where studios are pushing for graphical fidelity and working on the sheer scale of games. We think about this push as a kind of cancerous growth, he said. I think that will leave the AAA blockbusters as nothing more than the last of the dinosaurs. In this part, I think with the analytics and money making, he's probably referring to stuff like microtransactions, season passes, and AAA plus stuff, which is like a whole additional subset of late capitalism fuckery, which is mostly for another discussion. And the second dystopian future is exactly what we're seeing here with the unironic use of quadruple A by Microsoft and Ubisoft lately. I do want to point out that I think it's weird how he seems to suggest these two dystopias or whatever are mutually exclusive to each other, because I don't think they are, and honestly the industry is trending toward both of them in reality, so I don't know. Anyway, his final statement is that the push for the best graphics and the biggest scale is ultimately a cancerous growth. In my mind, he continues, video games need to have the goal of educating people, entertaining people, or at least being artistic, he said. If you're not pushing any of these things, then I think we're in for a rough patch. I just think it's kind of tragically ironic, isn't it? In the end, Alex Hutchinson figured he'd rather go indie and I guess for some reason be a subsidiary to Google's Stadia thing than stay on board with a company whose core principles are shamelessly greed-driven. But of course Ubisoft would be this way. Every main player in the industry is complicit in the same toxic form of competition meant to undercut the consumer as much as possible. So if that's not your cup of tea, like, where do you even go from there? I personally think this cancerous growth is taking form in very tangible ways in the current year. And honestly, it's a microcosm of the worldwide economic bubble as a whole. Like how Disney is out to buy every single thing. Or how Tencent, famous for video games and supporting the suppression of free speech, has their grubby fingers in so much shit that you've probably supported them whether you wanted to or not. Even the best boy Nintendo dabbles in a bit of slave labor every now and then. Like, I mean, come on, are you really going to stop playing Nintendo? I don't know, those are my thoughts. It's really just a wild ride, witnessing so many things begin to unravel as capitalism eats itself alive. Are you excited for the shining new era of quadruple A? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I really just had to write up something quick on this topic since it was in the news, and I've always had this hilarious aversion to AAA video game ideology. I thought it was a good time to rant about it and have a good little cringe with you guys at the same time. Anyway, that's it for today's video. If you liked it, please smash the like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on more of my bitter, cynical tirades. And, I don't know, hopefully maybe there was a point somewhere in that. If you haven't yet, check out some of my Bugsnax content. There's quite a bit of that, especially this super fun video where I'm reacting to every single one of them with a bit of wine and my amazing wife, Nest Girl. Check that out if you want. Otherwise, check out some of my Pokemon content, a huge backlog of Let's Plays from years long past, and just whatever else there is on this big old channel. Stay tuned for more, and thank you so much. Goodbye.